Welcome back to the Bible Story series. While Nehemiah was rebuilding the city walls, many Jews had not returned to their homeland but remained in the Persian Empire. The story takes place in the Persian capital of Susa. The emperor at the time was King Ahasuerus, historically known as Xerxes I. He was a grandiose and impulsive monarch. At the beginning of the story, the king hosted a massive 6-month-long banquet to show off his wealth. At the final feast, the king got drunk and actually ordered Queen Vashti to come out wearing her royal crown, wanting to parade her beauty before the guests like a trophy. This was a tremendous humiliation for the queen, so she refused. Fueled by alcohol and the urging of his officials, the king flew into a rage and deposed the queen on the spot. This impulsive decision left the position of mother of the empire vacant. It seemed like a simple domestic dispute, but it was actually God clearing a crucial position in advance for a massive impending crisis. To fill the vacancy, a nationwide beauty pageant was held. In the citadel of Susa lived a Jewish orphan named Esther. She was raised by her older cousin Mordecai. Esther was beautiful in form and features, but more importantly, she possessed a unique grace. During the 1-year preparation period in the harem, while the other girls fought over jewelry and cosmetics to dress themselves up, Esther didn't compete. She simply followed the advice of the king's eunuch. This quietness and submission actually caused her to win the favor of everyone who saw her. Ultimately, the king placed the royal crown on the head of this Jewish orphan. However, following Mordecai's instructions, Esther kept her Jewish identity a secret. She was like a chess piece planted by God right in the heart of enemy territory, quietly waiting for the moment to be used. The good times didn't last long before a major villain appeared in the court, Haman. The king promoted Haman to prime minister and commanded that everyone must kneel and pay him honor. But Mordecai, a Jew with a stiff backbone, insisted on kneeling only to God, and refused to bow down to Haman. Haman was infuriated, but he felt that killing Mordecai alone was too easy. He wanted to pull off something massive, genocide. By casting lots, Haman selected a date. He then bribed the king and tricked him into signing an edict. On the 13th day of the 12th month, all Jews within the Persian Empire, men, women and children, were to be slaughtered and their property plundered. When this news came out, all the Jews in the city of Susa fell into despair. Mordecai put on sackcloth, wept bitterly in the city, and managed to get the news to Esther in the palace, urging her to go and plead with the king. Esther was terrified because Persian law stated, anyone who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned will be put to death. At this moment, Mordecai spoke the most classic lines of the entire book. Do not think that because you are in the king's house you alone of all the Jews will escape. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. These words awakened Esther's sense of mission. She asked all the Jews in the city to fast and pray for her for 3 days, and then uttered that immortal vow. If I perish, I perish. 3 days later, she put on her royal robes and bravely stood in the inner court. A miracle happened. The king didn't kill her. Instead, he held out his gold scepter and said dotingly, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given you." Esther didn't make her request right away. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to her private banquet. Haman was extremely flattered. He went home dizzy with pride and even had a pole set up, 50 cubits high, planning to ask the king to impale Mordecai on it the very next morning. However, that night, an incredibly coincidental thing happened. The king suffered from insomnia. Unable to sleep, the king ordered the Book of the Chronicles to be read to him. It just so happened they read the record of how Mordecai had previously exposed an assassination plot against the king, saving his life. The king asked, "What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this?" His attendants answered, "Nothing has been done for him." Right at that moment, Haman excitedly entered the court to ask for Mordecai's execution. The king asked Haman, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" The narcissistic Haman thought the king was talking about him, so he suggested, "Have them bring a royal robe and a horse the king has ridden, and parade him through the city streets." The king replied, "Excellent. Go at once and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai." This was truly a stroke of divine genius. Looking like he had swallowed a fly, Haman was forced to personally lead the horse and honor his mortal enemy. The tide had begun to turn. The next day, Esther's second banquet began. The atmosphere seemed harmonious, but murderous intent lurked beneath. The king asked again, "Queen Esther, what is your petition?" This time Esther hid nothing. She tearfully accused, "For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed and annihilated." The king was shocked and enraged. "Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" Esther pointed her finger straight at Haman beside her. "An adversary and enemy. This vile Haman." The king got up in a rage and left the room. Terrified out of his wits, Haman stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life, falling on the couch where she was reclining. When the king returned and saw this, he thought Haman was trying to molest the queen, which only added fuel to the fire. The ending was highly satisfying. Haman was impaled on the very high pole he had prepared for Mordecai. This was the ultimate display of what goes around comes around. Although Haman was dead, the edict he had issued, the genocide order, was still valid because under Persian law it could not be revoked. Therefore, the king authorized Mordecai to issue a second edict, granting the Jews the right to assemble on that day, take up arms in self-defense, and destroy those who tried to kill them. When the 13th day of the 12th month arrived, what was originally the Jews' day of suffering instantly turned into their day of victory. No one dared to attack the Jews. Instead, many people were afraid of them. To commemorate this incredible reversal, the Jews established the festival of Purim. To this day, Jewish people celebrate wildly and exchange gifts on this day because it is their day of turning sorrow into joy, and mourning into a day of celebration. The story of the Book of Esther ends here. Although the name of God is not mentioned even once from beginning to end. Have you noticed? Was Vashti's deposal a coincidence? Was Esther's selection a coincidence? The king happening to have insomnia, the servant happening to read the history book, Haman happening to walk in. None of this was a coincidence. This book tells us, even when God seems silent and hidden, He is still in control of everything. He has placed you in your current position, perhaps precisely for such a time as this.